Welcome back to Definitely Not Definitive. I'm Ken.
And I'm Bethany.
And we're just a couple of dorks in love that love reacting to some dork stuff and love talking right like I just did. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on a roll today.
So a lot of what we do on this channel is we do requests. We take requests from our community, and that's how we find these fun videos to react to. And so we've been told that to check out how the universe is way bigger than you think.
With all of the billionaires blasting off into space and everything lately, one thing that I have heard, at least one of them, and I can't remember which one it was, say when they came back was just how going into outer space gives you such perspective. Because, when you're down on Earth and in your life, your problems and troubles and stresses and wins and losses are all so huge. Mm-hmm. But then when you blast off into outer space, you realize
I'm super fucking rich.
You are riding in a giant penis to space. You probably are very rich. But apart from that realization, just sort of how small stuff is, you gain perspective and realize it's...
The universe is way bigger than you think.
What he said.
It's what we're gonna figure out now. You don't need to blast off into space for that. It's free.
It's better. Yes, free is better.
This is a real-life lore video made possible by Squarespace. Make your next move with a beautiful website from Squarespace. This is Earth. You live here on this planet somewhere, and everything that you've ever known is located right here. But just how small exactly is Earth when compared to the scale of the entire universe? Let's start by zooming out to where we can see our nearest cosmic neighbor, the Moon. You may think that the Moon is very close to Earth since it dominates our night skies, but in reality the Moon isn't this close to our planet, it's actually about this far away. 384,400 kilometers away from you right now on average. You could fit 30 entire Earths in between this distance, and if you somehow were able to drive a car at a constant 100 kilometers per hour speed, it would take you about 160 days to drive the entire distance.
Oh my god.
Despite this incredible distance, however, 12 humans have actually set foot here, representing the furthest away that any individual human has ever been away from the Earth.
That's
and
impressive.
One of humanity's greatest achievements. This is what the Earth would look like from there if you were standing there with them. And
That's
if you
amazing.
wanted to communicate with somebody back at home, it would take a message about 2.5 seconds to travel between you and them, since that's how fast the speed of light can travel at. This is a photo that was taken on Mars, and that tiny dot that you see there is Earth as seen from the Martian surface. On average, Mars is an incredible 225 million kilometers away from Earth, but that distance can be as high as 401 million kilometers. That means that whenever humanity finally gets around to landing a human on the planet, that person will be 986 times further away from Earth than the astronauts who landed on the Moon were. In addition, the time delay for sending a message from Mars back to Earth isn't just 2.5 seconds, it's actually more like 20 minutes each direction, which would render instant communication in the event of an emergency impossible. When we zoom out even further away, we can find the Voyager 1 space probe, which is the furthest away man-made object from Earth. It is currently located 138 AUs from the Earth, AU meaning astronomical unit, which is the distance between the Earth and the Sun, which means that Voyager 1 is 138 times further away from us than the Sun is. At some point on its long voyage, Voyager 1 turned its camera around and took this photograph. It may not look like much at first, but in my opinion, this is the greatest single photograph ever taken in all of human history. This tiny, pale blue dot is Earth, and I don't think that anybody has ever said something as amazing about this as Carl Sagan when he said, "If you look at it, you see a dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever lived out their lives. The aggregate of all our joys and sufferings. Thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and every forager. Every hero and coward. Every creator and destroyer of civilizations. Every king and every peasant. Every young couple in love. Every hopeful child. Every mother and every father. Every inventor and explorer. Every teacher of morals. Every corrupt politician. Every superstar. Every supreme leader. Every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. Voyager 1 is currently traveling at 17 kilometers every single second, but even at that speed, it won't break out of the reach of our solar system for another 30,000 years.
Holy crap.
Once we go beyond the solar system, we arrive in our interstellar neighborhood. Here we shift to the light year unit of measurement, which is the distance that light travels in a full Earth year, or about 9.461 trillion kilometers. The star Proxima Centauri here is the closest other star to us other than our sun, but it's still 4.24 light years away from us. To put that into perspective, if it was heading in the right direction, it would still take Voyager 1 over 70,000 years to reach it. In other words, if you drove your car at 100 kilometers an hour like in our previous example to the moon, it would take over 6 times longer than the entire age of the universe is just to finally get there, and it wouldn't even exist still when you arrived. When we zoom out even further, we can see the entire Milky Way galaxy, inside of which Earth is located right here. This yellow dot is the furthest extent of humanity's radio broadcasts throughout history, which means that any possible aliens who live outside of this range are totally unaware of humanity's presence. It's complete silence outside of this yellow dot as far as we are currently aware, but the entire galaxy spans over 100,000 light years from end to end. There are over 100 billion stars and over 100 billion planets inside of our galaxy. But you have never seen the full glory of the galaxy at night, because 99% of the stars that you can see with the naked eye are limited to this small, tiny region right here. But even this massive galaxy is nothing compared to the rest of what's out there. Zooming out even further and we arrive at the local group of galaxies, a collection of 54 different galaxies that is about 10 million light years across. But zooming out even further and we can see the Virgo supercluster, of which the local group here is just a tiny segment of. There are at least 100 other groups of galaxies just like our own local group inside of here, and the distance from one side to the other is a mind-numbing 110 million light years. But even the massive Virgo supercluster is nothing but a quiet and tiny lobe of the Great Laniakea supercluster, an enormous structure that is home to our galaxy as well as 100,000 other galaxies. The distance from one side to the other is 520 million light years, but from even there we can zoom out all the way to the entire observable universe and see that even the titanic Laniakea supercluster is just a tiny and insignificant part of everything. This is the observable universe, and it contains everything that we know of. It is home to at least 2 trillion different and individual galaxies, which together contain more stars than there are grains of sand on the entire Earth. The distance from Earth to any side of the observable universe is 46.5 billion light years, which means that the entire width is 93 billion light years across. What's perhaps even more interesting, however, is what actually lies beyond the observable universe. Keep in mind that the observable universe is all that we can currently see, and it's entirely possible that the rest of the universe outside of it is vastly larger and more fantastic than we can possibly ever imagine. We simply don't know what else is out there, because the light from these incredibly distant places has not yet had enough time in the universe's history to reach us yet back on Earth. And the light from some places may never reach us at all. Because some parts of space very far away from Earth are expanding away from us faster than the speed of light, that means that the light from these places will never, in an infinite amount of time, reach Earth. Meaning that even if humanity is eternal and exists forever, there will still be an unknown number of places in the universe that we will never know about or ever see. So, it is very likely that as unbelievably enormous as it seems, the observable universe is just a tiny slice of what we can currently see of the entire universe. According to the theory of cosmic inflation that was proposed by Dr. Alan Guth, if it is assumed that cosmic inflation began at 10 to the negative 37th of a second after the Big Bang, and with the assumption that the size of the universe before inflation began was equal to its age times the speed of light, then this would seem to suggest that at the present day, the entire universe is 150 sextillion times larger than the observable universe. That number for reference looks like this, with this many zeros.
Sextillion?
Let this number sink in for just a moment. This would be similar to you thinking that the entire observable universe, everything that you could see, was the size of a light bulb, but then realizing that in reality the entire universe is larger than the former planet of Pluto. Imagine a light bulb in the center of Pluto, but we inside the light bulb were totally unaware that Pluto existed outside of it, and that's a similar situation to this. We are all so unbelievably small, but you shouldn't worry, because all that means is that there is so much left out there for us to discover together.
Wow, that was kind of crazy. I knew my mind was gonna be blown going into this, and I knew that I was just gonna be like, just not prepared for how small and how little we know, and just how much is out there. And yeah, I don't know. What'd you think?
A ton of thoughts just kind of sprang into my mind. Space, the final frontier. I could hear like Captain Picard saying that at one point when he talked about how like, oh, don't be afraid of this. It just means there's so much more to discover. And humanity has always wanted to explore. We've always thirsted for knowledge. So the idea of space and that, yeah, we're really small and sure, like an asteroid could hit the planet any moment and poof, that's it. All troubles are gone because we're all gone. But how really it's not to be approached with fear, but to be approached with excitement and enthusiasm. And I think that's such an important mindset to have. I couldn't help but think of Orion's belt from Men in Black when they talked about how like, oh, it's like if you're in a light bulb on the planet Pluto and you don't know Pluto exists outside the light bulb. I was like, well, yeah, or it could be on Orion's collar and we're in the marble. And like, I couldn't help but think about Men in Black for that moment.
Me and my friend Gavin used to like stare out at, like at the night sky and look at the stars, and like there were like 3 stars or whatever, because like we were like, lived in the suburbs of Chicago, and so didn't get to see too many stars there. But like just thinking about how like looking up at the sky and like seeing like the stars is kind of like looking out into the past, because the light that from that star is happening, like you're seeing that from so long ago that it's taking time to reach you. And it also made me think that like sometimes when you think about just like, when I even think about like, the world's problems, it can seem overwhelming and sometimes and like almost like hopeless. It's like, okay, well, look at this big universe. The Earth is like a little dot in this entire big universe. And so, and I'm a little dot in that, within the dot.
Especially if you're like us, your average Joe or your average Jane or whatever. It's like
I'm Ken though, and she's Bethany. We're your average Ken or your average Bethany. That's what.
You're not going to be able to wake up tomorrow and change the world. Even the president of the biggest countries in the world can't wake up and change the world tomorrow. So how can you do it? But if you can change your world and change your day and live that day to day in the way that you live it the way you want the world to be. And that's how you change the world. Apart from that, it also made me think of appreciating the magic that is our planet. I was horseback riding in New Mexico and we actually rode up into the mountains. And as we were coming down, one of the guys in our group was like, hey, lean back in your saddle. So I did. I just leaned back and I looked up, and it blew my mind how many stars you can see when you're out in open spaces away from the city. And to think of appreciating those moments in our planet where we can see the true beauty that's in nature and in space. But I think it's very easy to get wrapped up in the grind of everything and like stopping and pausing and just being able to enjoy some of those moments.
On a lighter note, I also think that when they showed like, I'm trying to think of what exactly they were referencing, but it was 165 sextillion, and they showed the number, and all I could think of was like Jeff Bezos seeing this and being like, I need more money. I need 165 sextillion dollars. That is what I need.
Yep, I can see that.
But anyways.
So many zeros. Must have so many zeros.
But let us know what you thought about this video down below in the comments. And just keep in mind that our reaction for how the universe is way bigger than you think
is definitely not definitive.